to defend the community and the tradition in Spanish courts. What you have to know and what you must know if you live in Santa Fe is that early on in the colonial period, the Spaniards came and set up these legal systems and these courts. And one of the things that was very interesting in the colonial record about indigenous folks is they very quickly picked up on these Spanish courts. And they became very effective at going to the Spanish courts. And they would often take their documents because they realized that these Españoles, they were really, they were obsessed with documents. So if you showed up with a document, that was like showing up with a piece of the Bible. Well, you got your Bible, well, look what we got. And they very quickly learned this. And so this argument is still not settled. So here's the tour. Now what's interesting about this first image of Aztlán, that I think is going to be very interesting for you, is that it's a woman who's leading them. Now in the 1960s when the Chicano movement began, and Aztlán was always talked about, they never mentioned that there were women in Aztlán. It was always these bad dudes who were in Aztlán, who led us out of Aztlán. And here you have an image of the ancestors being led out of Aztlán by a very powerful looking woman. She's larger. She's the one who's dressed most elaborately. She's carrying the sun on her back. And she's also got in her hand a trophy of a leg of one of the Aztec gods. That's how tough she is. Here she is. Her name is Itzpapalotl. That means obsidian butterfly. So all of a sudden we have this document showing up that's changing a lot of the gender prejudices that people have had about the origin stories of the Aztecs. Here she is. Now, she's really super tough because she already has 4 arrows sticking in her from this battle that she's had. You can see her here, her clothes, she's got this shield, but here she's carrying the leg of one of the Aztec gods. And you know it's an Aztec god because you see this sandal here? Whenever you see that kind of sandal, those are jade sandals. Those are only worn by Aztec gods. I really like this, and I can't help this because when we were doing this study, we had at that time a certain president at Harvard who came out and talked about women as not being very effective with math and science and so forth. And finally, I was going to send him this as a Christmas card and say, look, this is what happens when you talk about women this way. That today, he moved on to other things, but I hear recently he's coming back, so I still have a chance to show him this. This is what happens. Immediately when they leave, they've come out. They have this new fire ceremony. I don't want to dwell on that because I want to take you on the road. So here they are on the road. They've come out at the invitation of the city people to come and say, help us defend our city, and here they go. Little footprints, cute little footprints. I don't know how they painted this, if they had a little thing that went toot, 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 left, right, because there's no error. There's no 2 left feet in the mapa itself. And here they're hunting, on this particular date, they're hunting eagles. So there's this great hunt that's taking place. Then right after that, you see what looks like the first time that they're eating agricultural products of corn. He doesn't look like he likes it very much, but we know from other documents that the eating of corn, you know this in New Mexico, the eating of corn, that's a big deal in indigenous communities. And it's a very big deal the first time a child eats corn. Because actually the first time a child eats corn in the Aztec world, that child is moving from childhood into another stage of life. And that child is taking into his body things that come out of the earth which are heavy and also begin that child on the pathway to death. Because once you begin to ingest things from the earth, you will return to the earth. So this corn stuff, this is, it's really big. And here you see that sometimes it says that you can't, once you eat corn, then you can learn the lingua franca of the Aztec world, which was Nahuatl. So they go a little bit further. Here's the scene that I showed you. What's really interesting when you look up close to this is look at this face over here. Here's a nose and a mouth, and he's saying something. These are speech glyphs. Some sort of speech glyph here. We don't know what this is, but you can imagine the kind of storytelling that was produced and supported by this kind of map. That's why I compare it to the Iliad and the Odyssey. If you were to take elders who know the story tradition of this, and you were to have them tell you these stories, and you were to lay out those stories of every one of these scenes, it'd be longer than the Iliad or the Odyssey. I guarantee you. I know some of these stories, and those of you who've heard native elders tell stories, they like to tell long stories. They're into long stories. Well, you can tell the kind of long stories that would have come out of this. Soon after that, we see the first human sacrifice. And it's the sacrifice of a female, not the female who led them out of Cuauhtinchan. Here you see her. She has a sign of conquest. Whenever you see an arrow in this part of the skull, that means there's been a conquest. And we know a town has been conquered because this particular temple means, which is burning, means that there's been a conquest here. She's been sacrificed, and her heart is being offered to the sun, Tonatiuh, to nourish the sun. And so we see this type of ritual violence going along, but the most powerful sequence to me on the left side of the map is what I call crossing cosmic barriers, where you see them coming along and there's a tornado that lifts up these individuals and strips them of their clothes, turns them upside down, takes everything away from them. Then there's this fabulous image of two individuals falling into a crack in the earth. I have to tell you that when we first saw this, we had all kinds of debates about whether they're falling into the earth or whether they're going into a world behind the map. You know, what did this really mean? And we've never been able to solve that. Then there's a flood. And here you see someone being swept away, another one of these storms. And then this royal sacrifice of another woman takes place here. I'm going to show you close-ups as we move through this part of the map. Here you see that this tornado, which is beautifully painted. And on the map, this is only about this large, so you can imagine the kind of painterly expertise. Here's the wind god who's causing this. You have a question, sir?
Does Mexico have tornadoes?
Oh, yes, they do. Of all kinds, social and natural tornadoes, yeah. And here you see this close-up of this. Now, is this two individuals or one individual? One individual coming out, one individual coming back. Some of you may think of the Popo Volcano and the story of the hero twins who go into the underworld. It's an incredible kind of image that has puzzled us all along. Here you see the flood, where he's being swept away and then the sacrifice. Now, I won't dwell on this, but I'll show you that when they're having this sacrifice, they're marking it with a very important date. This is a crucial date in the Aztec calendar associated with renewal. And here you see the woman being captured, and she's being captured by her hair. Just to give you some anthropology, in Aztec anthropology, there are three souls. One is in the fontanelle, one is in the heart, and one is in the liver. And in all of these documents, whenever there's a conquest or a capture, they always capture them here in the fontanelle area, which means you're grabbing the animistic essence of that person. That's what's taking place here. And then here she is, totally dominated by both the Toltec, the city guy, and the people out of Aztlan, and her heart is also being offered. So you have human sacrifice. Now, if this was an outsider document, would the indigenous people have included this to show to the Spaniards? Maybe yes, maybe no. I want to hear from you. But the women themselves were not the only ones sacrificed. As you'll see in this image, they got their own. Had their own way of expressing violence. Now, in the original document, you have two women carrying something toward this corral along the road. Closer examination shows that they're carrying heads of men, and they're carrying them to a corral where there's a whole bunch of heads of animals. And so these women, they're also participating in this type of ritual violence. Here is the road, and over here you have something that's very important, I think, to Native Americans all over the Americas, a sacred bundle. Here's a sacred bundle where the ancestors' bones and other sacred objects are wrapped up. They're worshiping as they go along. This is a beautiful scene where, again, we see our figure. Here is feather lip, and here's serpent foot, showing up again at a kind of a negotiation at the river, where they're talking. Seem to be some important negotiating taking place. They've laid down their staffs to cross this river as they go along. And one of the things that was so fabulous in the study is that the botany and the botanical practices are so detailed throughout this. This just shows you 5 different types of corn at different stages of gestation. located inside of a mountain, different colors and different types of corn at different stages of growing, and so forth. And the two ethnobotanists who wrote a fabulous essay that's in the book, Roberto Bay and Edelmira Linares, they went to markets today in Mexico where they work, and they found evidence of the continuity between this representation of corn and the way corn is used today. One of my favorite scenes, I call it red hot words. They're having an argument. He's looking at him and saying, "Hey, get lost," and he's got something else to say. And they split. One group goes here, one group goes here. Sacred bundle. And right away, some people are punished. They're being punished. They're being stuck with knives in a yucca forest. There's a forest of yucca plants. Here you see the yucca. There's all this kind of drama that's taking place. And you see these sacred bundles showing up all over the map. One of the articles in the book by Guillaume Olivier traces the 14 bundles, sacred bundles, that are here. Here you see at Tlaloc, here's the underworld. This is the entrance to the underworld. Here's the bundles in different ritual locations. Here he's carrying one on his back. Here's one in a ritual location. Here's one in a mountain in another ritual. What's the meaning of these? This is very interesting because in the colonial history of Mexico, this is the first image ever of a cultivated cotton field. This is a cotton field that's been cultivated. And here you see not only the negotiation, but here's one of the great Aztec goddesses. This is Xochiquetzal. She is, here is the Quetzal on her back. She is flower Quetzal. She is both plant and bird. And she is also the goddess of weaving. She's the goddess of weaving. She weaves things together. They pass by the Popocatépetl, Iztaccíhuatl. I'm sure how many of you have seen these volcanoes in Mexico? There they are. There's the Popo. He's smoking then. He's smoking away, And so they arrive at the city. So now they've arrived at the city. There is no image of warfare except one on this. So they've come there to defend the city against the city's enemies. They're successful. The only symbol of warfare is right here. It's an escudo. It's a shield. And on the shield is a bumblebee. And that's one of the images of warfare. We know from a sister document that a war did take place, that they were successful, that apparently it was a very brutal war. And now they're doing a ritual, and they're sacrificing, but they're not sacrificing humans because this city had a reputation for sacrificing animals, sacrificing insects. Here you see a close-up. There is the serpent. There is the grasshopper. Here is a moth. And here is an eagle. This is the sacrifice that's taking place. And here you see the body of the moth.